it's Drybear. We're continuing a series of covering every single weapon in the First Descendant, and by request, many people have requested some of the least used or less popular weapons like handguns and some of the hand cannons. Today we're going to cover the handguns, and unfortunately I have some bad news. I was really hoping that some of the handguns would be a standout or would look really, really good, but unfortunately I think they're just simply lacking some base firearm attack, and they're really bottlenecked by fire rate as well. I feel like for some of these pistols, especially the machine pistols, they would really benefit from just a general buff across the board, mostly on firearm attack and fire rate. But I went ahead and ran the numbers anyway for anyone who's curious. And of course, if we get like a base firearm attack increase, this build will remain unchanged for the most part. So if they end up getting a buff or some kind of gain, then that's where we're going to look at for here. But this is the general handgun best build. I have covered 5 of the handguns that are non-ultimate, right? So the handguns that are ultimate, the Last Dagger and the Final Masterpiece, both of those are special cases, so I will need to run some special numbers and calculations. We'll make a special build just for those specific weapons. But the 5 other handguns that exist in the game, here's where they sit for their stat weighting, DPS weighting, and overall max. Now, one thing to think about from this standpoint is we just finished rebuilding our whole system, our whole ecosystem for calculating the DPS and making this as accurate as possible. And we also have an estimated theoretical DPS for each of the weapons, and we just did the Eternal Willpower. However, one problem with this is these are, I have put next to the weapon, the theoretical max DPS of these weapons when they're fully maxed out, fully activated, fully catalyzed with the perfect possible, down to the final percent mods with everything perfect. The best DPS you can get is with the Rose of Aisha, and it's 483,425. However, we just did the Eternal Willpower, which sits at 748,000 theoretical DPS, which means that it's double most of these handguns, and it's like this handgun at its best is 65% of the DPS of the Eternal Willpower, which makes it very difficult to compare it to any other thing. So I think right now, if you want to use handguns, I'm gonna leave this one here so that you can actually keep track of that. I think that's a big part of using these weapons, and the reason why I want to cover all the weapons is kind of bring out the best, is we might discover something new, something interesting, something fun, or if there are people out there that really like handguns. I've been asked many, many times to cover handguns, some of the launchers, even shotguns, all the guns that are getting left behind and ignored by a lot of people right now. I at least want to cover a best build that's highly optimized down to the percentage so you can use it if you wanted to. So from this standpoint, if you like handguns, I would recommend the Rose of Aisha. Your best value is still going to be Real Life Fighter. In this case, they have enough accuracy and enough fire rate to take good advantage of it. Action and reaction is going to be very good, and just like we saw with the Eternal Willpower, you only need one elemental stack. It's still going to be one of your best. Some weapons do really well with elemental, so much so that you run the blue elemental enhancement plus the gun barrel, and maybe even add in an elemental priority or even an elemental conductor. In this case, your optimal setup is just going to be a single element based on what element they're weak to. So if you've never done this before, in game, you can go to the bosses and click on them. It'll show their resistances, and it's just opposite resistance in a column. So toxic is weak to electric, electric is weak to toxic, fire is weak to chill, and chill is weak to fire. So if you run the correct element in that case, you will not only get the elemental damage, but you'll increase that elemental damage by 33%, which is a huge boost in DPS in most cases, which is really, really nice. So you'll be able to get that bonus here by just doing elemental enhancement. However, in this case, you don't want to run the elemental conductor, the gun barrel, or the priority, because it gets outperformed by all of these other modules in that case. So we're going to run elemental enhancement based on that, and you just swap it out for whatever boss you're fighting and what element they're weak to, and then you can just go ahead and forma or catalyze the rest of the slots for this. It does scale better with action and reaction. You can run slow art if you want. The loss in fire rate isn't enough to make this worse than most. You can run rifling reinforcement, and then from that standpoint, I would run better concentration, expand weapon charge, and recycling genius. Because these weapons, their base stats are so weird, they actually end up scaling better with recycling genius and expand weapon charge that's just where they're at. That's just, this is just the optimal DPS. They actually, with Rose of Aisha, because it actually has decent base crit rate, concentration priority, and better concentration are going to be doing great for them here. Reload focus and concentrated support ammo are also very good. If you really wanted to, and you wanted to run Red Wolf or Hungry Hound or New Beginning or Millennium Frost, those are going to scale worse with crit damage. So you're going to see some devaluing on these two here, and you would probably end up swapping in maybe a little bit more of like a fire rate, like an upgrade on the fire rate up, or some extra bonus there on that front, but they just really don't scale as well with some of these. Unfortunately, you just really need some base damage and some extra ability to fire on that front. So here are the handguns: Rose of Aisha, Red Wolf, Millennium Frost, New Beginning, and Hungry Hound. Now, one of the challenges with the handguns is their effective range as well. They start their drop off at 15 meters, which means if each one of these is 10 meters, they will start their damage drop off at this distance. And by this distance back here, they've gone down to 30% of their total damage. They can do some decent damage. This isn't even maxed. This is not a maxed out. This is not fully upgraded. This is a base level Rose of Aisha. And again, if you're doing weak point, you can actually do some pretty good damage there. The fire rate can go up quite high. Some of these can end up pumping really, really hard. The problem is that they just don't have enough extra damage in there to work with it. You could do a full elemental status build with these, because they do actually have some decent attribute status build-up on that front, but you're going to have to fight pretty close up to use these. And you'll get some decent damage this way if you really wanted to. You can see there is some scaling there. You want to make sure you have that extra elemental focus, and you are using the elemental enhancement. And keep in mind, for real life fighter, is you're going to pumping into the weak spot to stack that up. But if you start missing those weak spots over and over and over, you're going to lose your extra scaling with real life fighters. So if you decide to go in that direction, you can run Sweeping Squad. Sweeping Squad is overall about a third effective as the real life fighter mod, but it is something that you can keep active all the time as long as there's ads to kill. The duration on the buff is long enough that you can keep stacking it up. As long as you're killing enemies, you keep this going, and you don't have to worry about having this real life fighter. And even if real life fighter is only ever stacked like 5 or 6, it still is going to outperform from that standpoint. If I hide my face here, you can see the stat weightings here. Stat priority is going to focus most on firearm attack, flat elemental damage at the top here. And one thing that kind of points out how weak the base attack is on these weapons is that bonus attack versus a specific faction or colossi and flat elemental damage are your best rerolls. And it's not often that's the case. Usually weapons scale best with the percent firearm attack, but because these feel a little bit under the bar in their overall damage output and their base firearm attack, just getting a flat amount of base firearm attack is going to be really useful for these. So I guess if you wanted to, you could have multiple rows of Aishas if you want to do handguns that are non-ultimate and run them with different based on the faction, and that could actually give you a nice bonus. And also keep in mind that you can run characters like Enzo or like Valby for the additive base crit bonus, which will give a nice big damage boost to these as well. But realistically, when you have guns in the game like Eternal Willpower that we just did, that's more damage at a further range with more effective overall DPS, it's really hard to run weapons like these. However, that can turn on its head. So we might log in tomorrow and we get a nice update where all of the handguns get mega buffed and they get a huge bonus and everyone can come back and play handguns again. But I at least wanted to cover this so we have it in the books. We've registered the general handgun best build, and then we're just going to go and look at the last dagger and the final masterpiece, which are special cases, and see how we can bring those out. Because it's possible that the ultimate handguns are actually insanely good. We just have to run the numbers to find out. So let me know what you want for the next video, the next content coverage. I'm trying to do all the general ammo and then moving on from that, but let me know down below. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.